Look, let's talk real here. Catholicism at its core is about a deep-seated faith in God. I grew up around folks in Ohio who were devout Catholics. Sunday Mass wasn't just a routine, it was a time for them to connect with the divine, to pour out their hearts, their hopes, and their troubles to God. These are working against callous people busting their butts all week in factories or on farms. They find strength in their belief in the idea that there's a higher power watching over them. It's not about blindly following an institution. The institution, the church, is just a vessel, a place where they come together to share that faith. Take the sacraments, for example. Baptism, communion, confession. These are all about a personal relationship with God. When a child is baptized, it's a parent's way of saying they're entrusting their kid to God's care. When someone goes to confession, they're seeking God's forgiveness, not the church's approval. The church has its flaws, no doubt. There have been times when the institution has made mistakes, but that doesn't change what Catholicism truly is for the average person. It's about faith, about having that spiritual anchor in a world that can be pretty rough. So to say it's just loyalty to an institution is missing the whole point. It's a faith in God that gives meaning to millions of lives.
Oh, come on. You're missing the forest for the trees here. It's all about the institution, my friend. Let's talk common sense. The Catholic Church, it's a massive institution, right? It's got its own laws, its own hierarchy, its own way of doing things. And guess what? People follow it, they obey it, they give it their loyalty. That's not just about faith in God, that's about loyalty to the institution. You talk about the sacraments, but let's not get lost in the details. Baptism, communion, confession, minus, sure, they're about a personal relationship with God, but who's conducting these ceremonies? Who's in charge of these rituals? The church, that's who. It's the institution that's calling the shots, setting the rules, deciding who's in and who's out, and let's not forget the scandals. Time and time again, we've seen the church put its own interests above the spiritual needs of its followers. The abuse cover-ups, the power struggles, the money scandals. These aren't just a few bad apples, these are systemic problems. They show that the institution is more concerned with protecting itself than with the spiritual well-being of its followers. So don't give me this espada faith in God stuff. When push comes to shove, it's the institution that comes first. People follow the church because they're told to, because it's tradition, because it's what they've always known. It's not about a personal relationship with God. It's about loyalty to an institution that's been around for centuries, and that's the real story here.
It was looking at the bad and ignoring the good that comes from genuine faith. Sure, the church as an institution has had its dark moments, but you can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. I know a family in West Virginia. The dad was an alcoholic on the verge of losing his family. It was his faith in God through the Catholic teachings he learned that turned his life around. He didn't do it because of the institution. He did it because he found a higher purpose in God. The church may conduct the sacraments, but it's the individual's connection to God during those moments that matters. It's like a bridge the church is the bridge, but the person is crossing it to reach God. Aren't blindly following rules. They're using the church as a guide to strengthen their faith. As for the scandals, they're a stain, no doubt, but that doesn't mean the millions of people who find comfort, hope, and strength in their faith are just loyal to a flawed institution. They're holding on to God, using the church as a community to support their spiritual journey. Catholicism is about the everyday people who turn to God in times of trouble, who find meaning in the teachings, and who try to live a life based on faith. It's not about blindly following an institution. It's about a deep, neat-seated personal faith in God.
Oh, come on, JD, you're painting a pretty picture, but let's get real. It's not about the individual's connection to God. It's about the institution that's controlling that connection. The church, it's like a big machine and people are just cogs in the wheel. They follow the rules, they pay their dues, they do what they're told. That's loyalty to an institution, plain and simple. And don't give me that itsy bridge to God analogy. If the bridge is broken, if it's leading people astray, then it's not helping them reach God, it's just another obstacle. We've seen it time and time again, minus the church putting its own interests first, covering up scandals, protecting its own image. That's not about faith. That's about power and control. You talk about people finding comfort and hope in their faith, but let's not forget who's providing that comfort and hope. It's the church, with its rituals, its doctrines, its traditions. People are following these because they've been told to, because it's what they've always known. It's not about a personal relationship with God. It's about loyalty to an institution that's been around for centuries. So don't try to sugarcoat it. Catholicism, for many, is about loyalty to an institution that often puts itself above the spiritual needs of its followers. It's about following the rules, obeying the hierarchy, and protecting the image of the church. And that's the real story here.
You're stuck on the surface. Yeah, the church is an institution with rules, but that's not the heart of Catholicism. Think about the little parishes and small towns across the country. They're filled with folks who come together, not because they're forced by some big wigs in Rome, but because they want to worship God. I remember an old priest in my hometown. He spent his days visiting the sick, helping the poor, and spreading the word of God. He wasn't worried about the institution's power plays. He was focused on bringing people closer to God. That's what Catholicism is about at the ground level. The so-called TETS rules you're talking about, they're meant to guide people in living a life that's in line with God's teachings. It's like a roadmap, not a prison. And when the institution messes up, like in the scandals, it's the faith of the people that endures. They don't turn away from God because of the church's failings. They keep holding on to that spiritual connection. People don't just blindly follow. They're constantly questioning, growing in their faith. The church might be the vehicle, but the engine is the individual's faith in God. They discount the millions of people who find real meaning in their relationship with God through Catholicism. It's not loyalty to a flawed institution. It's a deep, neat-seated faith in a loving God.
JD, you're missing the big picture here. It's all about the institution, and you can't deny it. The church, it's like a giant corporation. People follow it, they obey it, they give it their money, their time, their loyalty. That's not about faith in God. That's about loyalty to an institution. You talk about little parishes and old priests, but let's not get sentimental. The church is a top-down organization. It's the Vatican calling the shots, setting the rules, deciding what's right and wrong. And when the institution messes up, like in the scandals, who suffers? The people, that's who. Their faith is shaken, their trust is broken, but the institution, it's still standing, still in control. The so-called its roadmap you're talking about, it's more like a straitjacket. People are told how to live, what to believe, who to obey. It's not about questioning or growing in faith. It's about following the rules and protecting the institution. So don't try to romanticize it. Catholicism for many is about loyalty to an institution that often puts itself above the spiritual needs of its followers. It's about following the rules, obeying the hierarchy, and protecting the image of the church. And that's the real story here.